All right, get ready because today we're going deep into something pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
How our brains actually create our reality.
Oh.
We're not talking like, sci-fi simulations,
Right.
but like the everyday world that you and I experience.
Exactly.
And wait, and get this.
Okay.
A big part of how our brains do this is based on prediction.
Really?
It's like our brains are constantly guessing what's going to happen next.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So
for this deep dive, we are focusing on the work of Lisa Feldman Barrett.
oh, cool.
She's a neuroscientist who is really like shaking things up in how we understand the brain.
Okay, like it.
One of her most interesting points is that like our brains are stuck inside our skulls.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're working with incomplete information, trying to figure out this outside world based on these limited clues.
So it's kind of like our brain is a detective in a dark room.
Yeah.
Just like piecing things together from like shadows and whispers.
Exactly. And that leads to something called the reverse inference problem.
Reverse inference problem.
Yeah. So we only get the effect, right? The sensory input. But our brain has to kind of guess the cause.
Right.
So like, imagine hearing a loud bang.
Okay.
Is it a car backfiring?
Oh, yeah.
A door slamming shut? Or something more dangerous?
Ooh, yeah.
Your brain has to make this quick judgment call, and it's relying on past experiences to do it.
That's kind of unsettling.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but I always thought I was experiencing the world directly.
Yeah.
Not just making best guesses about it all the time.
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
How would your brain even know what a car is or a door
Right.
without having learned those categories before? It's constantly building this mental library based on similarities, and that's how it interprets new information.
Okay.
You know how to sort apples.
Yeah.
Some are good for baking, some aren't,
Right.
even if they look similar at first glance.
Yeah.
That's your brain creating these abstract categories, not just relying on what your senses are telling you in the moment.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Our brains are like categorizing everything all the time. But what's the implication of that?
Okay.
Does it mean we're trapped in our own little worlds, just seeing what we expect to see?
Well, that's where this idea of social reality comes in.
Social reality.
Yeah, think about money. It's just paper, right?
Right.
Or a national border,
Uh-huh.
just an imaginary line.
Right.
But these things have power because we as a society agree that they do. Our brains have constructed meaning around them.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even some of our emotional reactions might be a kind of social reality.
Yeah.
Not just hardwired into us, but like shaped by what our culture considers appropriate.
It's a fascinating possibility, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Take facial expressions.
Okay.
We often think they're universal.
Right.
But research shows that even something like a scowl can be interpreted very differently depending on like the cultural context.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
What might seem threatening in one culture could be playful in another.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of what we perceive as real is actually just our brains imposing meaning on the world around us based on like what we've been taught to believe.
And that's why understanding this is so powerful.
Yeah.
It gives us a chance to examine our assumptions.
Uh-huh.
To see that maybe there's more than one way to interpret things.
Right.
And the more we learn about how our brains work, the more potential we have to be in the driver's seat of our own experiences.
Okay, this is blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So our brains are making predictions based on learned categories.
Right.
And some of those categories are basically social agreements that we've internalized.
Yeah, exactly.
That's heavy stuff.
It is.
Where do we even go from here?
Well, the next step is to look at the implications of all of this. If our reality is this flexible, this constructed, what does that mean for things like free will or our ability to change?
Right.
Can we actually rewire our brains to experience the world differently? That's where it gets really interesting.
I can't wait to dive into that.
Yeah.
This is like being handed a user's manual for my own brain.
It is fascinating.
But we'll save that for the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
For now, listeners, I'm sure you have a lot to think about.
A lot to unpack.
Just imagine your brain is basically a reality-generating machine.
Wow.
We'll be back soon to explore just how powerful that machine really is.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're back.
Yeah.
And ready to unpack more of this idea that our brains are like basically constructing reality.
It's a big word.
Last time we left off with this big question.
Okay.
If so much of what we experience is based on like prediction and social agreements,
right.
what happens to free will.
Yeah.
Are we really in control, or
right.
are we just puppets of our own biology?
Yeah. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And it's something that philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries.
Yeah, I bet.
But neuroscience is starting to give us some really intriguing clues.
Oh, cool. Okay, so is there even such a thing as free will?
Well,
if our brains are kind of running the show in the background,
right.
making predictions and interpreting everything based on these mental models we've built up?
Here's a way to think about it.
Okay.
Imagine your brain is like a supercomputer.
Right.
It's constantly taking in information, processing it, making calculations based on the data that it has available.
Okay.
But the quality of those calculations depends entirely on the quality of the data.
Right.
Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
So are you saying our experiences, our beliefs, the things we learn, that's all like the data that our brain is using to make decisions?
Exactly. Yeah. And just like with any computer, the output, the decisions we make, the actions we take, they're all going to be influenced by the data we fed into the system.
That makes sense.
Right.
So to have more free will, we need to be more mindful of what we're putting into our brains.
It's a good way to think about it.
Like the experiences we seek out, the information we consume, the people we surround ourselves with. It's about curating the data, so to speak.
Now you're getting it.
Wow.
The more we expose ourselves to positive experiences, challenge limiting beliefs, and cultivate healthy habits, the better our brains become at making choices that align with our values and goals.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's not about denying the power of our biology.
Exactly.
It's about understanding it and working with it.
It's about working with what we've got.
This is starting to sound a lot like personal growth.
Well, yeah.
Like all the things we do to try to improve ourselves and our lives. It's not just about willpower or forcing ourselves to change. It's about understanding the underlying mechanisms of our brains.
Exactly.
And using that knowledge to our advantage.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have more agency than we might think.
Okay.
But that agency comes from understanding the incredible complexity of our brains and working with them, not against them.
This is really shifting my perspective on things.
Good.
Okay, so we've established that our brains are constructing our reality, and we have some degree of influence over that construction.
Right.
But can we take that a step further?
What do you mean?
Can we actually change our experience of reality just by changing our thoughts or beliefs?
Well, it's not as simple as like snapping our fingers and having the world magically transform around us.
Right.
But remember, our brains are constantly predicting.
Okay.
And those predictions are based on our past experiences, beliefs, and expectations.
So if we shift those things, like the way we interpret events, the stories we tell ourselves, we can actually change the way our brain predicts.
It's possible?
And therefore constructs our reality.
Yeah.
That's a powerful idea.
It is powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like changing the filter through which we view the world.
Oh, I like that.
If we're constantly looking for evidence to confirm our negative beliefs, our brain will find it.
Of course.
And we'll experience a reality that reflects that negativity.
Right.
But if we start challenging those beliefs, actively looking for the positive, our brain will start to construct a more positive reality.
This reminds me of the law of attraction.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that what we focus on expands.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about here?
Wow.
Is there a scientific basis for that kind of thinking?
There are definitely some interesting parallels there.
Okay.
And what's exciting is that neuroscience is starting to provide some insights into how that might actually work.
Yeah.
It's not just like mystical woo-woo.
Right.
There's a growing body of research that suggests our thoughts and beliefs can have a tangible impact on our brains. And by extension, our experience of the world.
So it's like we're being given the keys to the control panel of our own minds.
Yeah. You could say that.
But with great power comes great responsibility. Right?
Absolutely.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Understanding how our brains work is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to use it wisely.
Right.
We can choose to focus on fear and limitation.
Okay.
Or we can choose to focus on love, growth, and possibility.
That's a good point.
The choice is ours.
Yeah.
And the consequences of that choice will be reflected in the reality we create.
This is mind-blowing stuff.
I know it is.
We've gone from the brain as a prediction machine to the idea that we can actually shape our own reality by changing our thoughts and beliefs.
Powerful stuff.
What a journey.
It is.
Any other key takeaways before we move on?
One crucial point is that while our brains are incredibly powerful, they're not perfect.
Oh.
They can make mistakes, they can be biased,
Right.
and they can be influenced by factors we're not even aware of.
That's interesting.
So while we have the power to shape our reality, we need to do so with humility and awareness.
That's a great point. It's a delicate balance between recognizing our power and accepting our limitations.
Right.
So what's next on this exploration of the brain and reality?
Wow.
I'm ready for more. It's funny how we always say seeing is believing, but like after this deep dive, I'm starting to think it's the other way around. Believing is seeing.
You got it. Our beliefs and expectations, they really do act like a lens, shaping how we perceive the world.
It's true.
And that's why it's so important to become aware of the stories we're telling ourselves. The ones that we might not even realize are like running in the background.
Right. Yeah. So how do we even start to challenge those stories?
Well,
especially the ones that are really ingrained. Maybe based on old experiences or things we were taught a long time ago. It feels like those could be tough to shake.
It's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
But that's where practices like mindfulness and self-reflection come in.
Okay.
Even therapy can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
It's about creating space to just observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. Noticing patterns, and gently questioning the beliefs that might be holding us back.
I like that you emphasized gently.
Yeah.
It's not about like beating ourselves up for having certain beliefs.
Exactly.
It's about approaching ourselves with curiosity, almost like a scientist studying their own mind.
Exactly. It's about experimentation.
Yeah.
Can I shift my perspective a little bit?
Right.
What happens if I try interpreting this situation differently?
Yeah.
Over time, with practice and patience, we can rewrite those old stories and create new ones that are more empowering.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener for me.
Good. I'm glad.
It's like we've been handed this new toolkit for understanding ourselves and navigating the world.
Absolutely.
But I bet some of our listeners are feeling a little overwhelmed right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It definitely is. And it's important to remember this is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
We don't need all the answers right away.
Yeah.
And we don't have to change everything about ourselves overnight.
Of course not.
Just be curious. Stay open to new ideas.
Yeah.
And be patient with yourself.
Be patient with yourself.
Learning about the brain is a lifelong process.
That's a great reminder. And you know what's cool?
What's that?
Just by having this conversation, just by learning about how our brains work, we're already starting to shift our reality.
It's true.
We're becoming more aware, more intentional about how we shape our own experience.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And understanding how our brains construct reality gives us the power to become more conscious creators of our own lives.
Well said.
Thank you.
On that empowering note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
We've covered so much.
We have.
From the science of the brain to the profound implications for free will and personal growth.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
And I hope our listeners are walking away with some new insights and a sense of possibility.
Me too. If you're feeling inspired to learn more, we'll have some resources in the show notes, including Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain.
Yes, that's a good one.
It's a fantastic read. And in the meantime, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shaping your own reality.
Love it.
Because ultimately, the power to create the life you want lies within you.
That's right.
In the amazing, complex landscape of your own brain.
Very well said.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into how our brains create reality.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds open, and remember, you have more power than you think.
More power than you think.